For many autistic children, a school day can feel intensely demanding from the moment they walk through the gate. Understanding that experience is the first step toward helping them feel safer, calmer, and more able to learn. In this video, we'll look at some of the most common school challenges autistic children face in mainstream settings, and why those challenges are often easy for other people to miss. We'll also focus on practical ways you can work with school staff to reduce stress, build understanding, and put supports in place before small struggles become bigger ones. Many school environments are packed with sensory input. Bright classroom lights, scraping chairs, buzzing projectors, crowded corridors, and sudden bells can all compete for a child's attention at the same time. Even when each part seems manageable on its own, the combined effect can be exhausting. What looks like a normal school setting to one child may feel relentless to another. Transitions add another layer. Moving from carpet time to desk work, then to assembly, lunch, and playground can mean repeated shifts in sound, space, expectations, and body regulation. When a child is overloaded, attention often narrows to getting through the discomfort. That can make it much harder to listen, process instructions, or stay with a task. You might see tears, shutdown, irritability, restlessness, or a child who seems to disappear into themselves. Those reactions are often signs of stress, not a lack of effort. Participation can drop too. A child may avoid joining in, leave work unfinished, or resist a part of the day because their nervous system is already working overtime. Certain parts of the day are especially demanding. Assemblies can combine bright lights, close seating, echoing sound, and long periods of waiting with little control. Recess, hallways, and the canteen often bring noise, movement, unpredictability, and social pressure all at once. Classroom changeovers can feel just as intense because the brain has to reset quickly. When you notice meltdowns, headaches, refusal, or exhaustion clustering around the same moments, that's a useful clue. The challenge may be the environment, not the activity itself. Helpful sensory supports can be simple and specific, like access to a quiet space, noise-reducing headphones, movement breaks, or seating away from high-traffic areas. Preparation matters too. A child often copes better when they know a transition is coming, what the next space will be like, and what they can do if it feels too much. The best support is the one that matches the child's pattern. A short movement break before assembly may help more than trying to recover after overload has already built up. Sensory demands are only one part of the picture. School also depends heavily on social communication, and many of its rules are implied rather than clearly explained. A child may be expected to read tone, timing, facial expressions, and group dynamics on the spot. If those cues don't come easily, the day can feel confusing even when the work itself is manageable. In group work, a child may be expected to join at the right moment, share ideas briefly, notice when someone else wants a turn, and stay with the group's pace without direct instruction. On the playground, games can change quickly, rules may shift mid-play, friendships can be fluid, and a child may not realize when a joke, invitation, or disagreement has changed direction. Even classroom participation carries hidden expectations, like knowing when to raise a hand, when to call out, how much detail to give, or how long to wait before speaking again. When an autistic child misses a cue, responds literally, or needs extra processing time, adults may wrongly read that as defiance, rudeness, or lack of interest. A child who doesn't join in straight away may still want to participate. They may just need clearer language, more time, or support decoding what others expect. That shift in understanding matters. Once adults see communication difference instead of deliberate refusal, they can respond with teaching instead of punishment. Parents can support social understanding by making the hidden visible. Role-play common situations, talk through what different responses might mean, and rehearse what to say next. Simple scripts can help, like asking to join a game, checking whether someone is finished speaking, or letting a teacher know when something feels confusing. Visual cues and explicit teaching can reduce guesswork. The goal isn't to force performance, it's to give your child clearer tools for navigating social moments with less stress. Another major part of school life is executive functioning. That's the set of mental skills we use to plan, organize, start tasks, hold information in mind, and shift from one thing to another. These demands show up all day long. A child may need to remember multi-step instructions, find the right materials, stop one task, begin another, and stay regulated while doing it. At home, this might look like homework that never quite gets started, even when a child understands the subject. The challenge may be organizing materials, choosing a first step, or tolerating the mental load. At school, multi-step instructions can disappear quickly if they're only spoken once. Time management can also be hard, so a child may seem slow, distracted, or overwhelmed when the pace moves on. Emotional load is part of this too, when the brain is already juggling, planning, remembering, and switching. Even a small extra demand can tip the whole system into stress. Supports for executive functioning often work best when they are visible and consistent. Visual schedules, checklists, and clear routines can take pressure off memory and planning. Chunking helps too. Instead of saying finish your homework, it may help to break the task into find your worksheet, answer the first 2 questions, then check in. Predictability matters because it lowers the effort needed to get started. When the path is clear, children can use more energy for learning instead of figuring out what comes next. As these patterns become clearer, school-based supports can make a real difference. Support staff, classroom adjustments, and well-chosen accommodations can help a child access learning more successfully. The goal is not to remove challenge altogether. It's to remove barriers that make school harder than it needs to be for that particular child. Sometimes a small change has a big effect, like seating a child away from a noisy doorway, reducing visual clutter nearby, or allowing access to a quieter workspace. Extra processing time can matter just as much. A child may know the answer but need a few more seconds to understand the question, organize their thoughts, and respond. Modified transitions can help too, like leaving class a minute early, previewing a new room, or using a visual prompt before a change. These supports reduce demand at the hardest moments. It's important to remember that accommodations are not shortcuts. They are tools that help a child reach the learning in a way that fits how they process the world. Fair doesn't always mean identical. It means giving each child what they need to participate, communicate, and show what they know. When schools understand this, support shifts from being seen as special treatment to being part of good teaching and equitable access. This is where parent advocacy becomes so important. Families often hold the clearest picture of what a child is communicating through their stress patterns, routines, and recovery needs. School staff may see a child for part of the day. You see the lead-up, the after-effects, the strengths, and the conditions that help your child feel more secure. Before meeting with school, it helps to gather patterns rather than isolated incidents. Notice when difficulties tend to happen, what comes right before them, and what recovery looks like afterward. Bring strengths into the conversation too. Teachers need to know what engages your child, what they do well, and which conditions help them participate with confidence. If you can name likely triggers and useful supports, the conversation becomes much more actionable. You're not just describing a problem, you're helping build a workable plan. Collaborative advocacy often starts with specific language. You might say, "We've noticed transitions after lunch are especially hard, and we'd love to think with you about what could make that easier." It can also help to connect behavior to context. Instead of focusing only on what went wrong, name what the child may have been responding to and what support might help next time. Keeping the conversation child-centered, respectful, and concrete makes it easier for everyone to stay on the same side. The shared goal is better access, not blame. Over time, the most effective support usually grows from a strong homeschool partnership. When families and educators share information regularly, children are less likely to fall between assumptions. Shared goals matter too. It's easier to make progress when everyone is working toward the same priorities, like safer transitions, better regulation, or more confident participation. Teachers often benefit from very practical information, like the signs that your child is starting to feel overloaded, the strategies that help them regulate, and what tends to make things worse. It also helps to share motivators and strengths. Knowing what your child enjoys, what builds trust, and what supports engagement can shape classroom interactions in powerful ways. Early warning signs matter as well, like changes in sleep, stomach aches, school refusal, or a drop in tolerance after school. Those clues can help staff act earlier and more gently. Small, consistent updates can make a big difference. A quick note about a tough morning, a successful strategy, or an unusually demanding day helps school staff respond with more context. The same works in reverse. When teachers share what they noticed, families can spot patterns across settings instead of trying to piece the story together afterward. These updates don't need to be long. Their value comes from being regular, specific, and focused on what helps the child stay understood and supported. Another useful piece of the picture can be cognitive or educational assessment. These tools can help explain how a child learns, where demands are landing hardest, and where important strengths are showing up. Assessment is not about reducing a child to scores. At its best, it gives families and schools better information for making support decisions. When assessment highlights differences in processing speed, language, memory, or attention, that information can guide more realistic expectations and more effective classroom support. It can help explain why one child benefits from shorter instructions, another needs extra time, and another needs work broken into smaller chunks with visual support. Used well, assessment turns confusion into direction. It helps adults move from asking what's wrong to asking what this child needs in order to access learning. Even with helpful assessment information, your child is always more than any profile or report. Their personality, interests, effort, and ways of connecting matter just as much. The most useful plan is a strengths-based one that uses insight to build support, protect well-being, and create better conditions for learning. When we step back, a fuller picture comes into view. School success is rarely about one strategy alone. It grows from understanding how sensory, social, and executive demands interact across the day. Accommodations help remove barriers. Communication helps adults respond earlier. Advocacy helps the right supports stay in place when needs are misunderstood or overlooked. Together, these pieces create a whole child approach that supports learning without losing sight of regulation, dignity, and belonging. A helpful way to organize what you've seen is to think in three areas: sensory demands, social communication demands, and executive functioning demands often overlap and build on each other. When a child is struggling at school, these categories can give you a starting point for understanding what the day may be asking of them behind the scenes. From there, the key actions are straightforward. Observe patterns carefully, share what you're noticing, and work with school to build supports before stress keeps piling up. You don't have to solve everything at once. Small proactive changes made early can make school feel safer, more predictable, and more manageable for your child. If school has felt hard for your child, that doesn't mean things can't improve. Progress often begins when the adults around them understand the demands more clearly and respond with care. You don't need a perfect plan from day one. Understanding, partnership, and steady support can make a meaningful difference over time. Take the next step by speaking with your child's school, sharing what you've noticed, and continuing to learn which supports help them feel safe, understood, and ready to learn. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. For further questions and inquiries, you may contact us at 65646533 or 8614-7651, or visit www.cognitive.com.sg.